The Gloriana set by ThebeMoon. Chapter 69. Crimes and Punishment.
Please, Hermione.
Harry begged.
I fear to see how a visit from me would do any good,
Hermione said primly.
I wouldn't like to waste a good healer's time. I'm not giving up on this, Harry said.
Hermione and Ginny both looked at him with irritation. They had withdrawn to their bedroom Saturday afternoon to relax with butterbeers and chocolates, not to listen to Harry's wheedling. Assistant Aura had followed them from the common room, levitating above the stairs to the girls' dorms. Now he was planted on their sofa and refused to leave.
I don't know why you need to interrogate Celeste Rosier anyway,
Ginny said, stretching on her bed like a cat. Her red skirt rode up on her thighs.
Surely you've gathered enough Death-Eater dirt from McNair.
Hermione had filled her roommate in on the events at the hunting shack and afterward. Honestly, she should have just made a copy of the Aura statement and passed them around in the entrance hall.
Kingsley just wants credit for the capture,
Hermione grumbled from her spot on the sofa beside Harry. She was already halfway through her butterbeer. It had been a long week.
Nobody believes that Pygmy Puff is really Celeste, do they, Harry? Harry?
Ginny was pulling her hair out of its ponytail and letting it ripple down over her shoulders, over her white top. Her red brow was clearly visible under the knitted fabric. Harry swallowed. He was technically off-duty, wearing jeans and a Weasley jumper, but he hadn't touched his butterbeer and wore an Aura badge on his belt.
Harry, Hermione repeated. Harry!
He looked over at her, startled.
I said the Auras want credit for Celeste, right? It's important that people know she's been apprehended, Harry said earnestly. But nobody will believe it the way she is now. Hermione, you have to change her back.
She shrugged.
Can't, sorry. You'll have to find another way to interrogate her. We've been trying, Harry said. Kingsley even drew a grid of letters on the floor, hoping Celeste would roll from letter to letter to spell things out. But she won't.
Ginny snickered.
Some wonderful Aura's office can't even intimidate a Pygmy Puff.
She sat up and crossed her legs. Harry rose to his feet, looking severe.
All right, I've had enough of this.
He stalked over to Ginny's bed.
You want my attention, Ginevra. Well, you have my attention. You have my full, complete, and undivided attention. Is there anything I can possibly do for you?
Ginny looked up at him with a smile.
There are many things you could do for me.
Harry flushed.
What, you've learned some new tricks from Zabini? Eager to try them with someone else?
Harry!
Hermione cried. Stay out of it, Mai.
Harry said, not taking his eyes off Ginny.
She knows exactly what she's doing. She wants me to play some Slytherin game. Well, I'm not a Slytherin, Ginny, and I don't play games with women.
Hermione looked at Ginny, expecting to see anger or shame or embarrassment, or maybe all three. But her roommate was as cool as the Norwegian pond Hermione was always trying to emulate.
Well, there you're wrong, Harry Potter,
Ginny said, starting off the bed and standing. Her voice was as clear and cold as crystal.
You have your game too, the gallant hero, the boy who lived.
She clicked her tongue.
But I'm not the sweet maiden anymore. Dear, dear, dear.
She stepped up to him, much as she had outside the burrow.
I'm all defiled and fallen now. Whatever will you do with me?
Harry's fist clenched and his profile was stony, but he said nothing. Ginny stepped back again.
Tell me, Harry, why did that Frenchwoman leave you? Was it that you weren't good enough for her, or did you make her think she wasn't good enough for you?
Hermione's breath caught. Harry was a gentleman in every sense of the word, but he had a temper. Few people saw it. Perhaps only Ron and Hermione, really, but it was there. Hermione jumped off the sofa, expecting the furniture to burst into flames. She was reminded of Draco on the Quidditch stands, incensed that she would believe Lavender's lie. The same coiled fury.
Are you trying to make me lose control?
Harry asked Ginny softly, and at that moment he sounded very Slytherin, no matter what he said.
I'm trying to make you real, Harry.
Ginny sounded entirely calm.
I seem to be surrounded by pretty shells.
Harry turned and strode to the door, yanking it open. Then He turned back.
"You are not who I thought you were, Ginny,"
he said, his voice thick with disappointment. Ginny's smile didn't waver.
"No, I'm not. I'm better."
Harry swung out of the room, slamming the door so hard Hermione thought it would splinter. He looked over at Ginny, who had the nerve to look satisfied.
"I hope you know what you're doing," Hermione said. "You're playing with fire." "He's playing with fire."
Hermione just sighed and fell back onto the sofa.
"You two have a very odd relationship."
"Tell me a story," Hermione said. Draco's hands were on her waist, and her torrid secret affair cardigan was unbuttoned, revealing a blue lace bra.
"There are other things we could,"
he began, lips brushing her ear.
"I'll make it worth your while,"
Hermione said. They were dancing in the room of requirement to the tune of a floating violin, stealing an hour or so between dinner and Quidditch practice. The inter-house Quidditch match was the next day, but Draco didn't want to talk about that or about the recent scene with the squeaky mice on the castle ground. Clearly, he didn't want to talk at all. "Tell me a story," she repeated, hand treading down his cream-colored jersey.
"Vixen,"
Draco murmured.
"I'm waiting, Mr. Malfoy."
Draco ran his own hand over her breast, stroking the blue satin.
"You were blue on your birthday,"
he remembered.
"At Zakon's party."
"You were grey," Hermione said, thinking of those beautiful robes that matched his eyes, how he shone in the candlelight.
"I can wait to see if you'd wear the diamonds."
Draco sounded like he was under Veritaserum again.
"I arrived early, stood by the door."
He chuckled softly.
"I saw you wearing the pin and potions, but had no opportunity to touch it. And I needed you to think."
"Ah!" Hermione's hand had left the jersey and drifted lower, managing to unfasten the unfamiliar Quidditch trousers. He slipped a hand inside.
"Enough talking,"
Draco breathed.
"Oh, no," she said. "Finish the story." "Fine,"
he said in a suddenly clipped tone, eyes shut.
"I was standing with Blaise near the door, and you walked in with Ginevra. Your hair was coiled up, with the clipper on top."
He opened his eyes and looked down at her.
"It suddenly hit me what I had done,"
Draco said, stopping all movement.
"All the implications. I had given you the Gloriana set, one of my family's most priceless magical works of art. It hadn't been used as an interest gift in 100 years. Not even my mother had been deemed worthy."
Hermione's mouth fell open in shock, and she drew back her head. No wonder Narcissa had been a little salty in Diagon Alley about the diamonds.
"When I saw you enter the dungeon," he continued, "wearing that jewellery, I panicked. I practically ran from the door."
Hermione grinned up at him.
"So that's why you were lurking behind the candelabras." "You cornered me." "Did not," she argued. "I wanted to look at the tapestries. You asked me to dance. Actually, you didn't even ask me, you just—" "Couldn't resist,"
he said, pulling her toward him.
"You were trembling," he murmured against her throat. "Like you are now."
The music from their waltz and Bill's and Fleur's wedding filled the room.
"You comforted me,"
she said.
"I'm very comforting,"
he murmured into her ear.
"And you made small talk, too." "I'm very comforting, and I have lovely manners," Draco said. "And story time is over."
His hand captured hers, drawing it downward to touch him again. Ginny went off Saturday evening with Lavinia Clark after inviting Hermione to join them. But Hermione chose to stay behind to further cultivate her new hobbies. She stopped by the patient's lab to show Snape the vanished M on her arm and dab some more scar solution on the red U scar. Snape had reluctantly agreed not to snitch on her as long as there were no apparent side effects. Then she headed to the library. She was surprised to learn in Fairies and Follies that love diggers were actual creatures, a breed of doxies usually invisible to the naked eye. Hermione was also researching another experimental potion, this one called Screaming Rain. Plus, there was Astoria's necklace to consider, although Hermione tried hard not to think about the implications of a necklace of submission that choked its wearer when she disobeyed. Shiver. Hermione was halfway through Diamonds of Doom, an illustrated history of coarse jewellery, when she sensed a presence by her table. She looked up from her book and her mouth twisted in distaste. "Theo." "What is it, not?" she asked, trying to sound bored. He hadn't spoken since the scene in McGonagall's office. Hermione had discreetly asked Slughorn to return Theo to his former potions partners, and the professor had agreed. Slughorn was also tutoring Draco privately now. The man did like a quiet class. Theo flinched at her use of his last name. "I'd like to talk to you, Hermione," he said. He was dressed in all black, and one broad hand adorned with that bloody signet ring clutched at his bag's leather strap. "Please." "Sort of," Hermione said, her eyes back on a page about the black Olaf diamond, which was said to drive its wearer to suicide. "Go seduce another muggle-born for your family's advancement." "It wasn't like that," Theo said tensely. Hermione turned the page. "It was exactly like that. You always knew when to turn up and when to walk away. Strategic. I thought it was typical Slytherin trait, but it was more, wasn't it? A little game of chess with the White Queen as the prize." He looked up, eyes narrowed. "Gain her trust, and draw her in with that smooth charm. Declare yourself helplessly smitten. Checkmate." Theo threw down his bag and sat opposite her without invitation. "It wasn't like that," he repeated. "I'll prove it." He produced a bottle and set it on the table for her. The tiny bottle was half full of clear liquid. "Veritaserum?" Hermione sniffed. "So you say." "Taste it, then," he said. "Taste it and try to say your name is Harry Potter." They locked eyes, and, as of its own accord, Hermione's hand reached out and took the bottle. Slytherins, always taking shortcuts. "I shouldn't," she said, holding it up to the lamplight. "No matter what you will say, it will change nothing." "You won't feel stupid anymore," Theo said. "I know how you hate feeling stupid." "Very true." Hermione uncorked the bottle and brought it to her lips, a single drop. "My name is, She couldn't say it. She couldn't say Harry Potter. He set the open bottle on the table, and Theo picked it up, his fingers brushing hers. He threw back the liquid in a single gulp and slammed the bottle down again. His jaw tightened. Hermione touched a wand on the table, casting a Muffliato spell around them. He looked at Theo, but said nothing. This was his party. "My grandmother was concerned about me returning to Britain," Theo recited. "She'd read the Prophet articles about threats against purebloods." Hermione rolled her eyes. The Prophet screaming headline, "Public demands death for Death Eaters," in July had certainly caused a lot of trouble among pureblood matriarchs. "Death Eaters were being rounded up," Theo continued, "or were tried, then either executed, imprisoned, or given the kiss. My father had just been executed." He took a deep breath. "Lady Gretchen suggested I make an advantageous marriage to restore my family's reputation. She considered you the best candidate." "I was dating Ron then," Hermione said, frowning. "It was in the paper." Another annoying headline. "Two of the Golden Trio to wed?" "Lady Gretchen said that wouldn't last. She's spooky that way. Trust me, Theodore," she said, pointing at your picture. "That one's got a taste for danger now." Theo frowned. She was certainly right. Hermione glared. "Watch it not." Theo coughed nervously. "I apologize. You have to understand, Hermione, arranged marriages are typical with purebloods. We usually marry for strategic advantage." Hermione looked at him thoughtfully for a moment, and Theo stared right back at her. His green eyes so like Harry's, the same directness. Except in Theo's case, the candid expression was probably entirely the Veritaserum. "Yes," Hermione said, "but in pureblood marriages, both parties are part of the arrangement. In our case, you weren't positioning yourself as a strategic advantage. You were presenting us as a love match." "Not entirely," Theo said. "I didn't quite understand the concept of a love match. I didn't think you'd marry me just for me. That's why I kept mentioning my money and political acumen." He shook his head. "I entirely misread you. I mean, here you are, pinning over men 2 steps from Azkaban." "Strike 2, not?" Hermione growled. Theo blinked. "Strike what?" She rolled her eyes.
A muggle term. Do you have a pointer? The point is, Hermione, when I saw you at the Gryffindor party. Is he bothering you? A voice cut in. Harry towered over the two of them, looking furious. He'd been broody throughout dinners, less than thrilled to hear that Ginny was off with Slytherin harpies. No, Harry, Hermione said, trying not to blush. It's all right. Or can you talk to him when he... Please, Harry, she said through gritted teeth. Harry glared. I'll be right there, watching. Harry stabbed a finger towards a nearby table and stalked off towards the restricted section. Hermione turned back to Theo. You'd better hurry this up. Harry isn't a patient person. When I saw you at the Gryffindor party. Theo swallowed. I meant what I said. You were a vision. I wanted you, not your reputation. Hermione, even if there hadn't been a plan, I would have pursued you anyway. He looked into her eyes. I need you to believe that. It was all real to me. Not real enough, she said bitterly, despite herself. A single word hung in the air. Astoria. Theo looked ashamed. You had me aroused, frustrated. Never had such trouble with a woman before. And Astoria kept. He flushed, but the Veritaserum compelled him to continue. She kept turning up in my room, wearing little Butt that bloody necklace, and she would... Please don't say any more, Hermione said quickly. I'm begging you not to say any more. Too much information. When we met Astoria outside that storage room, her words... Theo hung his head. I felt like rubbish. I knew I was only degrading myself with her. I ended it that night, told her to go play her little games with Draco. He took a deep breath. I never touched her after. I swear. Hermione eyed him doubtfully, but Theo was under Veritaserum after all. And more to the point, she really didn't care anymore. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. Harry turned with a giant blood-stained tome and slammed it unnecessarily loudly on his table. I don't know what you expect me to say, Theo, Hermione told Theo. Your original plan was doomed to fail, but not because of Draco. I don't plan to marry anyone, not for a long time. I'm only 19. I'm 6 months out of a war that has consumed my life for 7 years. I don't even know who I am. Theo smiled softly. You know who you are, Hermione. You know yourself better than anyone I've ever met, except perhaps Luna Lovegood. Like her, you dance to a tune that no one else can hear. We just stumble after you, helping to keep up. Hermione stared back at him open-mouthed, feeling much like she had when Theo listed 3 things he loved about her in Bluebear's class. I wasn't expecting immediate nuptials anyway, Theo continued. A long engagement was even better. His eyes glinted. A long, passionate engagement. Strike 3, Hermione said, standing. Harry stood immediately as well, although Hermione kept him away with a slight wave of her hand. Theo, of course, stood when she did. You fulfilled your goals here, I hope, she said in her best McGonagall tone, because this is the last time we discuss this. I appreciate that your feelings were real, at least as real as mine were, but I don't love you, Theo, and I never will, even if Draco and I have truly ended. Her fists clenched at the idea. I'll never return to you. We could be friends then. No. You're friends with the Weasley. Hermione glared. I was friends with Ron for 7 years before we became a couple. He has always been honest with me, almost too honest. Yet with a slight grin. Ron has proven himself to me time and time again, and it will take more than a little bad behavior to drive me from him for good. Harry was drawing closer now, and Theo gave the assistant Aura a wary look before turning back to Hermione. I still care about you, Hermione, and you're obviously unhappy. You're right, I'm absolutely miserable, Hermione said. I miss Draco so much that I can't breathe. Is that what you want to hear? I love him, but if you have noticed, my friends are rallying around me. One is practically breathing down your neck. She scowled again. You need to leave me alone, Theo. Theo smirked. You called me Theo. Get lost, Nott. Theo picked his back and winked. I will, for now. He strolled off as if he'd won something, although for the life of her, Hermione couldn't imagine what that was. She sank down in her chair again, and Harry joined her immediately. Are you all right? He asked. Hermione just groaned and put her hat in her hand. You're right, Harry. I need to stay away from Slytherins. Good luck with that, Harry said. Neville tells me the Snakes are planning a Slytherin Gryffindor party, inter-house unity. Merlin spare us, Hermione breathed. From what she'd heard, Slytherin parties were scenes of total high-fashion depravity. Her reputation would never survive it. I don't think he will, Harry said with a sudden grin. Merlin was a Slytherin too. Hermione lingered in the third-floor corridor, wrapped in a black cloak. It was Monday morning, and she could be in arithmancy, but instead she was standing beside the statue of the one-eyed humpbacked witch. She'd been pacing there for a half-hour now, trying to screw up her courage. So much could go wrong. Once again she took a silent inventory. Hermione wore jeans, dragon-hide boots, and a heavy black jumper, and her braided hair was studded with all 3 Gloriana set pieces. The long strap of the pink beaded bag was slung across her chest. She was ready for anything. Anything but the person she saw coming out of the secret passage to Honeydukes. The witch's hump opened with a loud creak, startling Hermione, who staggered backwards. Then she stared open-mouthed as Ron's head and shoulders popped out. Hermione! Surprise and wonder spread over his freckled face, and he wriggled out of the statue and landed before her. Hermione was amazed, not only by Ron's presence, but by the look on his face. He actually looked thrilled to see her, like he couldn't believe his luck. He moved to embrace her, but Hermione backed up further, recovering enough to glare at him. I'm surprised you'd want to touch a Death Eater, Hall, she said icily. Ron paled, the freckles on his cheeks standing out starkly. He dropped his gaze, and when he looked up at her again, his dark blue eyes were filled with pain. I'm sorry, Hermione, he said. I'm so sorry. Hermione continued to glare. I'm still livid at you, Ron, and I don't care if Molly let you go. I'm not— Mum didn't let me go, Ron said. I just came. You what? Hermione stared up at him in amazement. Molly's word was law around the Barrow, especially after Fred's death. Her children would do anything to avoid distressing her in any way. But Molly— I couldn't stay away any more, Hermione, Ron said earnestly. I know you don't want to see me, but I couldn't have you believe I thought you were a whore, Hermione said coldly. Ron's head drooped. I just wanted to hurt you because I was hurt. I couldn't bear to think of him touching you the way I— His fists clenched. Hermione stood frozen, unable to speak. Ron looked up and met her eyes. I'm so sorry. I know you have no reason to forgive me. He swallowed. I hate Malfoy. I'm sorry, but I hate him. But I can't hate you. I can't think badly of you. If you want that Slytherin asshole, well, all right then. His mouth twisted. You will do what you want anyway. Yes, I will, Hermione said, and I expect you to respect me and treat me well, even when you hate my choices. That's what Harry said. Ron looked at her with concern. Harry told me all about Malfoy and the blood potion and his parents. Are you sure you're all right? Hermione crossed her arms, still nettled. I'm fine. He said Malfoy won't let you near him, doesn't want you involved. Yes, Hermione said shortly. At least I agree with a fair about something. Ron looked around the empty corridor and back at Hermione. I thought I could catch you before lunch. We could go to the 3 Broomsticks or something. Wait. His eyes fell on her cloak, boots, and most damningly her pink bag. Are you scarving off classes? Where are you going? Out. Alone? Ron looked around as if someone was hiding behind a tapestry. Where's Harry? I don't need Harry, Hermione said. This is my business, Ron. Where are you going? Ron repeated, eyes narrowed. You don't need to know. Hermione began to climb into the still open hole. You'll see Harry and Ginny. You owe her an apology too. Let me come with you, Ron said. He held her arm to keep her from falling down the slide into the tunnel. I won't be any trouble. I won't say what. You're not meeting Malfoy, are you? No, she said, trying to get her other leg into the passageway. Let go of me, Ron. Ron's eyes gleamed. I'll tell Harry. Tell him what? That I'm going to Honeydukes? Let me go, or I'll petrify you right here. I know you're still mad at me. Damn right I'm still mad at you.
Ron released her and stepped back.
"You're doing something Harry won't like," he said, frowning. "I bet Malfoy wouldn't like it either. You're sneaking off somewhere. I bet Malfoy can figure out where you're going."
Hermione looked up at Ron, horrified. This was terrible time for the redhead's occasional flashes of strategic insight. Even if she petrified her friend, he'd eventually recover, and he and Harry would go to Draco. Then Draco would leave to find her, and if he didn't return by midnight, he'd break his probation. Plus, she couldn't leave Ron frozen for hours, even propped up in a closet. Still, Hermione knew she could get around all that. The fact was, she didn't want to go on this mission alone. She was practically shaking at the thought. Would she get the information she needed, or just make everything worse? But that didn't mean Ron was the one to take her. She eyed him thoughtfully, one of her legs inside the statue. Ron, picking up on her subtle signals for once, just looked back at her. He wore a heavy black cloak over his shocking orange Weasley's Wizard Weezer's jacket. Maybe. "You're right," Hermione said finally. "I am going somewhere dangerous, and if Harry or Draco or even Ginny knew, they'd try to stop me." She looked him in the eyes. "Are you going to try to stop me, Ron?" Ron swallowed noisily. "No." "If I let you come with me?" Hermione sat, trailing off. Her mind gibbered. "What are you doing? It's Ron. He'll muff up everything. He's just comic relief, and if there's one thing you don't need—" Hermione pushed the last thought aside. No, that wasn't her voice. That was Draco's. But Ron was more than comic relief. He could be more. "If you come with me, you can't be the Ron I saw at the Burrow," she said, holding his eyes with hers. "You can't be the Ron you were at Hogwarts this year. I need the Ron who outsmarted McGonagall's chess set. I need the Ron who entered an Acromantula den, who stabbed the Horcrux with Gryffindor's sword." Ron stepped closer. "I want to be that Ron," he said hoarsely. "I can be that Ron. Please, Hermione." Hermione eyed him for a moment more. "All right," he said finally. "You can come along." Ron's face broke into a wide, happy smile she hadn't seen since Fred died. Hermione sighed. Maybe she was being a fool, deluding herself because she didn't want to go alone. But given the number of risks she'd taken this year, or it was one more. Ron was hugging her now, apparently thrilled to be selected for a dangerous mission he knew nothing about. Honestly, a squeaky mouse would have more sense. "Idiot," she said fondly. "This isn't a holiday. Now let me go." He did so, and she took the short slide to the tunnel floor and lit her one. Ron quickly joined her, still giddy. "So, where are we going?" he asked. "Nocturne Alley. Gringotts again? You want to free another dragon?" Hermione looked up at him, and something on her face wiped the smile off her face. He looked down at her questioningly, his freckled face sober. "We're going to Azkaban, Ronald," she said. "I need to see Lucius Malfoy." To be continued. Next up, Lucius. Oh boy. Thank you for listening to this chapter of the Gloriana set by ThebeMoon. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on Spotify, YouTube, or AO3.